Any other person that wants to come up? Come on, come on. Yeah. So, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I want you guys to be quiet and listen up, and make your answers quick. What did you like about being, I'll say privileged? What did you like about growing up privileged, with privilege? And speak to the crowd.
I liked.
Just make it quick, Mr. Riyad.
I don't know, just biking.
That is all. That's all you said. That's great. What's your name? Abdul. So he said biking and playing basketball. He lived a life of leisure. Abdullah, what did you like about growing up with privilege?
I was generally wealthier than a lot more people around me.
Got it. Yeah. Right here.
Like, alhamdulillah, I used to, whatever, like, I don't want to sound selfish, but whatever I wanted, I usually got it.
That's fair. Just to be honest. I'm trying to get you to be honest right here.
So my parents worked like all the time, so what I really liked was the little bits of family time we had together, because it was really cherished.
Got it. Great. Okay, we'll start with you. The second question. What did you find challenging?
Nothing.
Nothing. Right here. Speak to the crowd.
What I found challenging was...
Right here.
One of the things I found challenging was that because of my wealth, I was a person who would hang out with more rich people, but then I don't want to hang out with people who are less wealthy than me. But they wouldn't want to come with me because they thought I was too rich for them.
Got it. Wow. Right here.
So this was a tough question, but I had to write college essays. So I remember after thinking of it like a lot, when my siblings left the house to go to other colleges, and I was like, dang, because like I spend most of my time with my siblings. Cause, like, I was always thinking, why do people go out to make families and leave the house when they don't even, like, the more important thing is we already have a family, stick with the family. So like, I just like hanging out with family, and I guess the challenge is like when family starts to like grow apart, that's just like, that sucks.
That's true.
Family.
You're hilarious, man. You must be like the smartest kid in this room too. He's the next Zuckerberg here.
The green side.
Bikes, fashion, and cars.
What's that?
Bikes, fashion, and cars. No joke.
That's awesome. Okay, now the final question. What do you want people never to say again about privilege, growing up with people who grew up with privilege?
I really don't know. Like, people can say anything.
Okay, great. I'll do that. Right here. People, what do you want people to never say again about people who grow up with privilege?
That their life is great.
Got it. Yeah, I love it. See, I like this comment. I'm gonna make fun of you later on. I like your comments too. You're speaking a lot. You're speaking wrong right here.
That they don't have hopes and dreams that can be shattered, and that they have to struggle too, and that they care about, just like everybody else, they care about each other and they care about family.
Give a round of applause, please.
Struggles aren't anything less than what other people go through.
That's real. That's real. Okay, great. Let's give our whole panel a round of applause. I want to get you back real quick. Now, I'm going to ask all of you guys an interesting question that relates to this topic. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up our relationship to money and how we grew up with money, because it directly relates, and now I need you guys to understand, it directly relates to our relationship to things and how we consume things. It relates to how we create trash in the world. We are not. Our sunnah, the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is not the sunnah of creating trash and waste because you want things to define you. That is not our path. We are exactly the opposite of that. And that's what we have to think about. So, from that perspective, given the way you grew up in your particular ways, what was your experience around the ideas of reduce and reuse and recycle? From a working class perspective.
It's a part of everything you do.
And explain more.
You know, whether it's clothing, whether it's a toy, whether it's a work environment, you always think about the small things that most folks don't think of. So big feast, you don't get a big bowl, you get something small and just enough. You reuse anything that could possibly be reused.
Yep.
So it's just a part of, just like Islam is a way of life, recycling, reusing, reducing is a part of life, and
Great.
you don't think twice.
Great, love it, right here. So when you're growing up, what was reduce, reuse, recycle? How was that manifested in your home?
How's it manifested? Okay. No, because I was gonna say the phrase reduce, reuse,
Oh, I think I have to
recycle.
use the biggest words with you. That's what
I'm not much of a big word person. No, it's just because I was gonna say the phrase just always got to me, like it was like funny, but how's it manifested? Okay. But I don't know. I mean, examples like we had like separate recycling and separate trash. I mean, me personally, I don't know about my whole, like my household in general, but like me personally, like if I see like trash on the beach or something, or me with my accent talking about the beach, with the Hawaii shirt. Sorry, if I see like trash like somewhere on the ground,
you pick it up.
yeah,
All right, we're
like,
gonna go to the next
pick
one.
it up or
Come
something.
back, come back. Right here.
Okay,
You're cool, bro. You're cool.
thinking about recycling and reusing, since
Where you were raised with it.
where I was raised in Saudi Arabia, so a lot of people there waste a lot, especially food and many things, and there's no recycle programs for anything. Then my dad, coming from a poor family, even though he's rich now, he used to even, whenever his shoes used to get ripped, he used to go and get them fixed, and now buy new shoes like me. When I used to go buy new shoes, whenever my shoes used to get old, so.
That's a great anecdote. That's a great anecdote. Okay, right here.
I lived with a big family. I have 4 siblings and 2 parents. And like,
Instead of 8. I know, keep going.
like we don't really value reduce, reuse, recycle like you mentioned. Like you said for example, we should have a separate trash can for recycling and for like actual trash. Like when I personally take out the trash for my family. When I do, there's like a black bin. There's a huge black bin for trash, and there's a blue bin for recycling. And the recycling bin is always empty every single time.
Got it. This is great. Last one.
How it's manifested in our home, it's not so much your way of life, it's just is. Like, you put this stuff in the recycling, but you don't really think about it.
I love it. This what I love about this range is that you have complete different, complexity and different experiences. Is that true? People all have different experiences. I really appreciated what you said was insightful. You were like, I didn't know the workings of the home necessarily, right? Like that wasn't your role, right? To have that kind of in-depth knowledge of it. What you said around, reducing and reusing. There's probably the kind of home where people got hand-me-downs for clothes, and maybe 2 or 3 generations of hand-me-downs for clothes. The way that we're raised, the way that we understand our life, really reflects for some of these things. The way that we think about water, waste, energy, and food, that's what this conversation is about. Let's give them a round of applause. And then so I'm going to make a couple quick statements really quick. Hold on, write down your question. We all know the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, right?
Yes.
Is everybody still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, the most important one is not reduce, reuse, recycle. It's another R. Can anyone guess what it is?
Responsibility. Relationships. Retirement.
Refuse to be part of the system. I'm dead serious. If you want less trash and waste, if you want to be environmentally conscious, do not buy junk. Don't just create more demand for junk. I was advising Deen and all the other engineers in this room. How many people are engineers and want to be engineers, right? You should be creating products that have heirloom quality. When I talk about heirloom quality, create products that you can pass down to your grandson who will get that product and say, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather used this. Does that make sense? My grandfather has a saddle that he was a cattle rancher in Nebraska in the 1890s and in the early 1900s. We still have that in my mother's house. If that saddle was made today, it would have crumbled 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. Because we create things that are designed to be trash. Does that make sense? You are the most important people. This transition time in your life is the most important. You are the most important generation because you are seeing and witnessing the crumbling of a pollution-based way of life and the beginning of a new way where we take the best from the past, use the technology that we have now, and create the products and the services of the future.
The main library building
It's going to close
will
in
be
2 minutes.
closing in 15 minutes at 5 p.m.
Do they give you an announcement when it's closed? Anyway, but you are critical to this process. So I was talking to a brother and I said, are you going to work at P&G? Are you going to work at Clorox or some of these other places? Those are places where you can go in and you might need to work there for a little while and transform and learn and understand. Does that make sense, everybody? Creating products that have value. Refuse. That comes in the beginning. Do you need to buy something? One of the things you can do right now, go home to your parents' house and de-hoard their house. Go into that junk closet, the junk drawer, the basement. Do we need this? No. If it hasn't been used in 6 months, get rid of it. Give it to someone who can use it or figure out a way to responsibly dispose of it. We need to de-hoard our entire lives. A way that we can think about this, I was saying this the other. Why do we know so much about the supply chain, and this is a business question, but know so little about the removal chain? Why do we know so much about the supply chain, but know so little about the removal chain? We don't know where things go to. Hold on, I'm gonna finish up real quick. And then the last 2 thoughts that I want to bring out, and then we'll ask real quick on questions. Walking to the masjid. Wallahi, when you go for Fajr, park a little bit further away and just walk. It is literally part of the sunnah to use your legs and your feet on this earth. We are literally attuned and we're fixed to the earth. Prayer is the most amazing thing because you are reminded at the different movement of the planet. Think about this. We have a tradition where we are supposed to be in concert with the physical movement of the entire planet. There's no tradition that's like that. That's incredible. Allah reminds us consistently about our relationship to the earth every time that there's a time to pray. Take advantage of that tradition. Have halakas outside. Do walks to sight the moon like the Sahaba used to do. These are things that are in our tradition that are incredible, but we've chosen to disconnect from them. Reread 40 hadith and think about them from an ecological perspective. Each one of them. Immerse yourself in studying the ayats of the Quran and then look for those same ayats out in nature. Identify the places where you can be in better balance. So I'm going to take questions, inshallah. But these are some of the, there's a lot of ideas. Inshallah, you'll read the book. I will say this is my commercial, and I said this earlier, and I gave you a hard time, and I apologize. If anyone you ever meet has a book, buy it. Don't give them something like, oh, I don't want to see. No, buy it. So you guys all have to buy the book. But in all seriousness, if you're going to buy it and not read it, give it to someone who will read it. Or buy a book, and give it to someone at a school, particularly a non-Muslim in a school, and say, I want you to read this. Right? There's a lot of value there. And then for my Malaysian brothers and sisters, I love your country. I'm moving to Malaysia. No. But I think that's all. Let's do some questions. I know that you had a question, and then you, not you, but it was, I know, I'm going to get to you. I got you. And then there was a question over here. So let's start with Abdul.
Yeah. So you were talking about how we need to consume less meat.
Yes.
And specifically beef.
Correct.
But you're not like fish, for example, would be a good source of protein, very healthy.
It's also a very factory farm.
Yeah, but they say some of it can be sustainable.
Correct.
Right.
So, yeah.
So that would be a good source of like protein. in your
Correct.
diet.
Also, dal and beans and, not beans
Right,
per
but that's
se.
not meat. It wouldn't be like.
But if you need protein, you can get protein from plants and other things. You don't need to have protein from meat.
No, I was just always taught. Yeah, I had a science teacher in 8th grade who told me that beef industry is probably the greatest source of pollution. And,
Correct.
And he said, if anything, consume less red meat.
Correct.
And white
And if you're
meat,
going to
fish.
consume red meat, and this when we were talking about dinner yesterday, the reason why I said that about beef versus lamb, I said, because in the United States, if you're gonna, there's documented evidence. A lot of the beef that's even slaughtered halal in the United States is fed meal that has ground up pork in it because that's the feedstock for the meat, right? So you don't know what you're consuming. It doesn't matter, even in the Muslim world, you don't actually know what's in the feedstock for a lot of the meat. Most likely with lamb and with goat, they've lived a freer life. So if you want to eat meat in the United States that you think has lived a better life, lamb and goat has lived a tayyib and been slaughtered halal, has also lived a good life. Right over here.
Oh, I was just going to say, the comment about the working class, I just wanted to add to that. I mean, I grew up as the youngest of 6, and my parents came from Saudi, and we lived in Harlem, New York, that's where I was born, and so reducing, reusing, recycling wasn't just something that we did just here and there, it was our way of sustaining life. That's what it was. Without it, we couldn't sustain.
That's great. And I love the reduce, reuse, recycle. Let's get back to refusing. Let's really get on that, white on rice. Let's be really about that. Question, right? Oh yeah, Abdul, now you.
My thing is, I was listening to I think it was a khutbah, a lecture from a sheikh, and he was saying that he's going against the people that were saying that, hey, eat less meat, go on grass, eat all kinds of green things and this and that, because he gave an example from the time of the Khilafah where Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he used to get 1 sheep a day, and as his daily meal or for his whole family and stuff. And he said, if that was then, why should we now suddenly stop eating meat and just go all green?
That's an interesting perspective. I think that every time and place has its different context, right? So if every single person ate a sheep every day, or every family did that, Allahu Alam, I think that we often live in a context where we're in a scarcity model, which is not an Islamic model, which the scarcity model suggests that, there's not enough, that someone has to go poor, someone has to be hungry, someone has to be homeless, someone has to go without love. That's the dominant model that exists. So perhaps if we were all mindful and intentional that we were doing something because it referred back to the best generation, and that was our intention with it, and that's how we approached it, perhaps we would have enough for everybody. So I couldn't argue against that, obviously. I think that there's a lot of deep wisdom with that practice with the right intention. Shaw. Right here. Oh no, I'll get the young guy, sorry.
Okay, so you were talking about how when companies make stuff, they make them not durable.
Correct.
But some companies make them durable, but they're really on the expensive side.
And that's where you have to think. What are you buying it for? Right? Me and my wife are about to renovate an apartment in Brooklyn. And I was explaining to someone earlier, we're too poor to be cheap when we're renovating that house. Right? If we renovate it with cheap materials, we're gonna have to keep renovating it. But if we renovate it nice, early on, properly, and spend a little bit more money, we're gonna have to do less upkeep later on. Right? So those are the kind of conversations that you have to have about purchasing things. We live in a context where credit and debt is the norm. So a lot of people will buy things that they think that they need and go in crazy debt. This requires us to actually save money, save a lot more money, and be more thoughtful about every single purchase that we make. You need those shoes. If you need those shoes, if you think you need those shoes, then can you get rid of a pair of shoes when you buy them? You're going to the store to buy shoes. There's someone in your community, there's a homeless person you know needs shoes, so you can give shoes away to get shoes. Every time you buy something, something has to go out of your home.
But I mean, with shoes, if you will only wear one pair of shoes, they can get worn out quickly.
You don't wear one pair of shoes. You don't wear one pair of shoes.
So if you cycle through the shoes, they won't get worn out as much, and you won't have to buy as much.
That's a great example. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Are there any other last questions? Right here, yeah.
Yeah, you were saying we should eat less, and he was giving an example of how Sahaba eat people of those ages bigger so they eat more, I guess maybe. But are you saying that we should vegetarians better in these days? Are you saying?
I'm saying that we should be very, very conscious about every meal that we eat. And that it's not being a vegetarian is better or worse. If that's the right path for you, alhamdulillah. But I would advise people to be mindful of their own nutrition and to be thoughtful about each meal and to not make a rash judgment, right? But I do think that every Muslim in the United States should eat less meat. We eat far too much meat at every single meal, and frankly, it's not healthy. The other side of this that I didn't even go into was around health and wellness. And Muslims don't move. You talk about Saudi Arabia, you know, there's a reason why Arabs have not been in any high-level participation in the Olympics. They haven't done anything. It's heartbreaking, right? And part of it is that they don't get out and do stuff. And what are you getting in Arab countries that have gone from low-earning nations to higher-earning nations? They're becoming more diabetic. They're becoming less healthy because they're eating Western style of consumption of meat, and then they're not doing anything. So that's why it has to be within context. That's why it has to be in context. I'm gonna get any other sisters. You're good. And okay, right here. Last question.
If it's possible, could you again tell me one more time what it really means to refuse to be part of this system?
Oh, refuse to buy stuff. What did you spend money on today?
Jamba Juice.
Jamba Juice. You could have gotten your fruit and made your juice at home. And it would have been cheaper and tasted better. Yeah, but you buy we're human beings. No one's free from having to consume.